Why did the teacher get fired from your school? Story 1. Embezzled something like $20,000 from the school field trips she was in charge of scheduling for the whole school. All field trips that needed to be paid for she planned and took the money for. Overcharged the students, but only deposited the amount for what the trip cost and kept the rest. Did it for decades and stole about $20,000 over time. Not only fired but charged and found guilty. Not sure how much time she was given. Story 2. Because he set up a camera in the middle school theater changing room. His dumb ass was on the beginning of the video, turning the camera on and adjusting a modified shoebox he put over it to hide it. A student found it and took it home, watched it with parents. Goodbye, Mr. Goebel. Story 3. He was the gym teacher for over 30 years. He volunteered to stand near the trash cans during lunch every day to ensure the students dumped their food and gave their finished trays to the cafeteria workers in an organized way. He had done this for decades. Even when my father attended that junior high. One day, a student decided to toss her entire tray in the trash instead of dumping the contents and giving it to the cafeteria work. He removed the tray from the trash and gave it back to her. She threw a carton of chocolate milk at his face, close range. He responded by punching her in the eye. Story 4. The most awesome teacher I ever had was a history teacher, but totally awkward. He was sadly a drunk but a funny one, and a great storyteller. The type that would wave a broomstick pretending he was in battle. One of his weird habits during all this awesome stories is he would be eating the chalk. Just casually nibble from it out of his fist as if it were peanuts. There were situations, and I don't make this up, that he wanted to write something on the blackboard only to realize he ate all the chalk. Ha. Story 5. He wanted to date a teacher, and she turned him down. So, then he suspected that she was sleeping with a student. He then hired a private investigator and had her followed. She found out about it, went to the cops, requested a restraining order, and he was brought up on stalking charges. Edit. He was fired. I don't recall her facing any sort of discipline. It was the 17-year-old, star basketball player. It all started because he was bragging. The rumors of her dating a student started well before the teacher started pursuing her. The rejected teacher hired a private investigator because he heard the rumor mill. Most people in the school thought the two teachers were dating because the male teacher was always in her classroom, even during class hours. He would buy her flowers often. She was the cheerleader's coach, and he was always sitting in on her practices after school. The male teacher abruptly stopped going to her class and going around her. The private investigator and stalking accusations came 2 months after that. Everyone figured he had her followed investigated after he was rejected. Story 6. He kicked a volleyball out of anger and it bounced off of a girl's face, doing some damage. He was already on thin ice, though after doing something that really should have got him fired immediately. He shot a student's dog in retaliation after the student's dog killed his dog, the student. And the teacher lived in the same neighborhood and both dogs were loose at the time the teacher's dog was originally killed. The big problem was that the dog that was shot was on a leash and being walked by the kid at the time. This was in the early 90s in South Texas. Story 7. All his classes were failing. He spoke unintelligible, didn't explain anything well, and if anyone asked a question, he'd respond with ask someone else who does know. As if we ever wanted to ask him anything unless the entire class didn't understand. This was my old chemistry teacher. He was fired halfway through the year. We then didn't have any chemistry classes for a while. The other chemistry teacher couldn't take over all the vacant hours, but she gave us a 3-week crash course at the end of the year. I learned more in those 3 weeks than I did in the first 6 months with the fired guy. Reminds me of my history teacher in 1 year of middle school. Spoke an almost unintelligible mix of Italian and her dialect, didn't know a damn thing about history. Passed the lessons talking about completely unrelated topics and then have us take the tests with the books open, so she was sure grades weren't a problem. She was actually really kind but completely unfit for being a teacher, and she transferred after the end of the year. Story 8. My history teacher's son had an illness. I'm not sure what, but it was terminal. He needed more time off to be with him and his family. Apparently he had used his allotted vacation sick time up already and the school board wouldn't approve anymore. So he just left. Can no longer be employed in the district because of it, I heard. Everybody loved him too. One of the few teachers who really cared about his job and his students. The lady they brought in to replace him did nothing wrong, but nobody could truly replace him. The whole class dropped about 5 points in grade because of it. I missed him a lot because he was one of the few teachers I ever tried to really impress. Story 9. Dude was a social studies teacher. He was also the girls' swim team coach. One day in class he connected his computer to the projector, but he clicked the wrong file, and instead of whatever video he intended to show the class a video of the girls' swim team using the school's showers was presented instead. There was a girl from the swim team in the class when it happened. Dude got canned and taken out of the school by the local PD. Story 10. Ooh, this is a fun one. This happened in Germany, where teachers are tenured. So it is really fucking hard to get fired as a teacher, but she still managed to achieve that. Well, Miss M was a failed artist gun art teacher. She projected her own non-existent success onto her students and had them participate in art contests non-stop. We hated those because we really didn't want our creativity to be exploited for the personal self-worth of a psychopathic witch with a drinking problem, so we started a little resistance. We had our parents apply pressure at parent-teacher conferences to stop her from doing the contests, and at the same time plain refused to have our work sent in. It devolved quickly. She didn't take it well. One day, she was in a particular bad mood and on some nonsensical rant about whatever, when a different art teacher knocked on the door and requested that his classmate pass through her room to his room because his room's door lock was broken. Cue 25 students shuffling through the classroom in awkward silence while Miss M offloaded her frustrations on the other teacher who ignored her and left to his room. A couple minutes later, he stuck his head back through the door and requested to have another chair because he didn't have enough for his class. Miss M completely lost the tiny bit of sanity she had left and physically attacked him with a chair. Like, full-on hitting him with the thing while screaming unintelligibly about him disturbing her precious teachings. He fled through her classroom because, you remember, his door was broken, and went straight to the headmaster who came in and put her on disciplinary leave in front of the whole class. She was never seen again.